Hey guys, in today's video we're going to go over 5 tips that are going to help you be a more successful reefer and to have more luck with your coral. So tip number 1, get a mentor. So this doesn't have to be a formal mentor. You don't have to go up to somebody and be weird about it. For example, don't be like, hey Tom, I gotta ask you something. What is it, Jim? You're making me kind of nervous. Tom, I don't know how to ask you this. Look, Jim, we get along great, but I don't feel that way about you. We're just friends. No, Tom, I just want to ask you if you want to be my mentor. Don't do that. So it doesn't have to be formal. All you're doing is you're picking somebody to ask questions to seek advice from. Okay, and the second thing is when you're choosing your mentor or your mentors, make sure you get the person that has the tank that you want your tank to be. So for example, don't go asking Cletus to be your mentor or asking Cletus questions if all Cletus has is a tank full of softies when you want an Acropora tank. Okay, it's not going to work. The advice you may potentially get from him is probably not going to be useful for you. Tip number 2, don't buy into the fancy gadgets. Now, I'm not saying don't get fancy gadgets. Don't get a controller or a Clarity filter roll. Sure, those are great, right? But you gotta first understand the basics, understand why you may or may not need something before you get it. I'm just going to give you guys an example. A local guy that was reefing previously and had stopped for a while, he came back to the hobby. He dropped 10 grand on equipment, on a tank, on coral, on all this stuff. After, I think, less than a year, he sold everything for, I think, $2,000. And it was because he just couldn't get things to work. So don't be that guy. A controller is really great. Just make sure you understand what a controller is going to be giving you. And again, I'm not saying don't go out and buy all the fancy equipment if you have the means to do so. By all means, it's going to make your life easier for the most part. So number 3, okay, this is something I think a lot of people are guilty of, and I'm seeing a shift away from this. So when I entered the hobby 2.5 years ago, everyone had their tank too clean. You know, everyone was striving for the cleanest tank, lowest nutrients. Let's get the protein skimmer, the biggest protein skimmer we can. Let's make sure that our algae turf scrubber is running 24/7 and is pulling everything. And what happens is, the problem is your coral need these nutrients to grow. And when you're pulling them out in excess, so with your protein skimmer that's oversized, with your algae turf scrubber, which is pulling out more than just nitrates and phosphates. Now you're talking about micronutrients, these trace elements that your coral need, and it's all being taken up by your algae. What I would recommend is between phosphates and nitrates, I always like to test phosphates because in my experience and based on my reading, phosphates are the nutrient that if it really does get too high, you could run into serious issues. And with phosphates, I think that a good number to shoot for is between 0.03 and 0.1. Now, I think it's a little different if you're running ultra low nutrient system, like don't listen to this. But if you're just running a plain Jane system, 0.03 to 0.1, you're probably not going to have any problems. Your coral are going to be pretty happy. Last time I tested, I think I'm at 0.05, so pretty good. So, and that's with a low phosphorus Hana checker. Okay, don't waste your money on a regular phosphate checker because most of them do not test low enough to be of any use to you. If those tests are going to register something, yeah, you're probably already in trouble. So tip number 4, stop moving shit in your tank. Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that's like, oh, I think that Tang moved that rock 2 degrees to the right. I have to. No! Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that's like, oh no, I put 2 red coral beside each other. Must move. Stop that. Stop moving shit in your tank. Now, I don't do this, and I don't know who does, but apparently a lot of people like to move the coral around in their tank for no reason other than the fact that they're bored. So stop doing that. Coral have evolved to grow to their conditions, especially SPS. You know, your sticks are not going to grow this way just for some random reason. It's because they're growing to meet the conditions of flow and light. So if you keep moving your stuff around, 1, it's not going to be growing very optimally, and 2, you could actually be hurting it. Because it could be growing one way and then you move it, and now the way it's growing has kind of screwed itself. So don't do that. Same thing with LPS. The LPS can handle flow. I find most of them, well, okay, wait. Not most of them, but things like your Euphilia can actually handle quite a bit of flow. But if you're going to move it around and it's going to get more flow and then less flow, it's not going to be happy. And number 5, I'm just going to plagiarize this. I'm sorry, Jake Adams, but I'm going to follow a piece of advice that a reefer from Australia, his name's Evan Luo, that's Luo, gave on one of Reef Builder's videos. And to make it more interesting, I'm going to speak in my Australian accent. The way I see reefing, it's like steering a big ship. So you want to, you know, it takes a bit to get moving, but once you got to going, it's pretty easy. So if I had one piece of advice, I'd say steady as she goes. You don't want to be changing a million things in your tank at one time. I would change, you know, one thing at a time. If you want to change your lighting, and then let it ride out, steady as she goes. And if that's one piece of advice I'd have to give, that'd be it. Okay, so I've watched that video 100 times. That, I don't think that's word for word, but that should be pretty close. And Evan, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I love your tank. I think you're awesome. So, hey, if you've gotten to this point in the video, if you've stuck around, then you probably want to hit that subscribe button. And you know, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed that video. Anyways, week 4 of quarantine, that's what you get. I'll see you guys next time.